When you are an insider, you are never off the clock, which means when Tom Pelissero wrapped up the annual meeting in Florida just a few days ago and headed out of Palm Beach, he took the family on vacation. The family was there, but it's spring break time, and he is taking time from vacation because he is always on the clock to join us from Florida on the Rich Eisen Show. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Andrew. What's up to my boys in studio?
Tommy
Tommy,
what up, kid?
Are you...
Can't wait to be there with you next week.
Yes,
Excited,
sir.
baby.
Tom,
Let's do
in
it.
this chair at this Granger desk next week. Are you making it over to the Live Tour today? No?
I will not be. I am taking a brief break from watching my kids jump in and out of the pool. Do you want a list of the texts I've gotten in the last hour here?
Yeah, let's do it.
So here's what we got. I left the key in the room. Do you have a key?
Oh, gosh.
Finley, no, we're going to skip that one. Can you bring my book? I thought I put it in my bag. Maybe it's in my backpack. Can you bring me, I'm going to leave those out. I might just walk from here to the massage. Sudden downpour. Oh my God, it's pouring. Tegan ate one of Finley's no mayo sandwiches. Can you make another with just turkey and cheese? So that's my vacation, Andrew. This right now. These 20 minutes.
While Colorado
This
Pro
is my
Day
vacation.
is going on. Can I tell a real quick story from the party Monday evening at the annual meeting? So the Monday night party at the meeting is a big deal. Everyone gets gussied up and you go to the party. But it's also a family event, right? So everyone's got their families, the kids, you and Sarah, the kids, everybody there, right? There was one room, and I had never seen this before the annual meeting, that was basically a kid's room. They had entertainment for the kids. They had all these desserts and all this stuff. I ran into Sarah there, and you might wonder, why did you wander into the kids' room? Me, I was just wandering around, number one. Number two, in the kids' room, they had a bar.
That's true. In the corner.
In the corner.
I also
and
took note of that. Now,
wait,
in
hold on.
the defense.
It was empty. They needed it for the parents, but compared, Tom, to all the other bars of the party where you had a line 10 deep, that bar was empty. So I kept going back and forth, wearing out the carpet to the kids' room. I kept waving to Sarah, hey, I'm going back to the bar. There's no one at the bar. But what a brilliant idea, because you need the bar for the moms and dads in the kids' room.
That's tremendous.
Now, I shout out to the NFL events people, because it originally was supposed to be an outdoor event. But as we all know, in Florida, the weather can turn on a dime. And all of a sudden, it started pouring at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There were projections of potential hail. So they moved everything inside. And you would never have known it because the whole party was set up really well. But yes, the kids' room that was in the back of the resort that we were at, the centerpiece of that room was hermit crabs wearing mini NFL helmets racing with a guy calling it like the hermit crabs were on a 100-yard touchdown run, and then raking them back to the center when they got to the edges. I had not seen that before. I am not 100%. I assume it was legal. I assume there's no rules against it.
Were the kids betting on these?
No. League event.
The kids had the option. They had the option of perhaps placing small wagers with each other, and those wagers would be strictly in whatever they were, packs of football cards and things like that that they were handing out.
Oh, is that where those football cards are coming from? Because Stefanski's kids had football cards, and we're going through those. I didn't realize that's where they got them.
Well, at the end of the night, I'm sitting in the lobby of the hotel because I was sticking around to do some more mingling, and Sarah and the kids were headed back to the hotel. And so the girls are sitting on either side of me, opening up cards, like calling out, I got Joe Burrow, I got CeeDee Lamb. And then I just hear somebody walking up go, that's a photo right there. And it's Roger, who's walking by with Jane on his way back to his room. And I'm like, here's your next generation right here.
There you go.
This is what's going to keep the NFL going. A 10 and 8-year-old girl popping cards at 10 o'clock at night, wearing their nice dresses.
And then trying to figure out which of those hermit crabs to draft for their fantasy team next year. Yeah, it's a big deal.
They were more confused than anything. Finley was more concerned with getting, they had face painting. Well, she got 2 whole sleeves of paint.
Wow.
Both her arms all the way down, and then refused to go in the pool the next day because she didn't want the tats to come off.
Wow.
Yeah, that's your future right there,
Tom's daughter's sleeved up already.
Respect.
Speaking of the draft, Tom Pelissero joining us on vacation. The Colorado Pro Day right now. Browns have like 15 people there, including owner Jimmy Haslam. I know, Tom, we are still 20 days out, but do you hear, let me phrase it this way. What is your takeaway about the top 3 in the draft after 4 days in Palm Beach?
I would say, I'll start with this, Andrew. It's the draft. Everybody lies. Nothing truly shocks me anymore. I would be very, very surprised if Cam Ward does not go number 1 to the Titans. It's the strong consensus within the league. Would he be the number 1 quarterback in every class? Probably not, but he's the clear number 1 quarterback in this class. As much as the Titans could be tempted, is there a price, an offer point at which they would move? I think everybody's got a price point that they would move from, but I don't get the sense that that's the direction it's going. So I would say, sitting here right now, Cam Ward is most likely the number 1 pick to the Titans, which then would mean the draft begins at number 2. And I would say the most asked question from other teams within the league is, what are the Browns doing? What are they going to do at number 2? They do not currently have a quarterback plan. The only healthy quarterback on their roster is Kenny Pickett. It does not sound like Deshaun Watson is going to be ready to play at all in 2025. And so you're going to need multiple quarterbacks added to the roster. But are you going to pursue something at number 2 overall, depending how you feel about the value? And that's where it's probably, illustrative, the fact that it's not just Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski at these pro days. Paul DePodesta is, I know, on the credential list for the event today at Colorado. Jimmy Haslam is going around to all these various workouts too. This is an organizational decision, and they want to make sure that the value is going to be there. It would not shock me if they took a quarterback at number 2. If I had to right now lean, I would say they don't take one there. Obviously, you've got some potential. There's a lot of debate about who's the number 2, the number 3 quarterback in this draft. You potentially could get those guys, whether it's trading back into later in 1, whether it's in the 2nd round, the 3rd round, even potentially. And then you've still got some loose ends out there, like Joe Flacco, who's obviously had some success with Cleveland. You have Kirk Cousins, who at some point here, it's not going to be before the draft, but at some point, you could be going down the road of Kirk looking for, being willing to move the no trade to the right team. And the Falcons, who to this point have set a very high price on what it would take to get Kirk Cousins, maybe softening on that under the reality that it's probably not going to benefit you a whole lot to have Kirk Cousins staring over Michael Penix's shoulder through the entire offseason. So number 2 is absolutely fascinating. There's also the Giants at 3, even after signing Russ, even after signing Jameis, still have a long-term plan quarterback need. Both those guys are on 1-year deals. They're making whatever it is, $15 million total. This is, that's bridge quarterback money between the two of them. It would not surprise me at all if they went Shedeur Sanders. And the boogeyman in this whole thing is, could somebody potentially think the Giants are going to do that and trade into number 2 with Cleveland? Mm-hmm. The other piece of it, Andrew, that you can't overlook is this draft, there's some very talented players. But when you're talking about the first rounders or like that elite group, you're talking about 4 or 5 guys. And if you're anybody up at the top, even if you get a crazy trade offer, you're not going to want to trade, depending where you have that line, out of those top 4 or 5 guys, because now, you're getting a bunch of picks potentially in future years, but you're downgrading what could be an elite player coming into your program here. There's a ton of moving parts. And I would say right now, sitting here today, nothing firm at Tennessee. They're out there. They're going to work out Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders here. But right now, the consensus within the league is this draft really begins at number 2.
Yeah, and for everyone who says, well, why don't we just trade down? You have to have somebody, to your point, that wants to trade up. Generally, you want to trade up for a quarterback or one of the few elite players. Where does Tyler Warren factor into that? I think he's a name that people have to keep an eye on as well, because he's right there. I mean, I think he's elite, but he's behind Hunter and Abdul Carter. And then how high do people want to go up and potentially try to get him? And let's play the game that Shedeur Sanders gets past 2 and then gets past 3. And then, potentially the Raiders were there at 6. And that was, months ago, a juicy one. But they just gave Geno 66, 67 guaranteed, ballpark thereabouts. Tom, how does the Geno Smith contract affect the Raiders' thoughts at quarterback at 6?
Well, first of all, Andrew, the entire Geno Smith situation is really unique because based on the breakdown that Michael Florio had today, saying that it's $40 million in year one, that's the same number that Seattle offered him. And when he was, insulted by that number, wasn't willing to take it, they went, all right, we'll take a third-round pick, sign Sam Darnold, who's 10 years younger, for less money. Geno goes to the Raiders now, back with Pete Carroll, but essentially gets the same dollar figure. It's not a contract that in any way precludes you from drafting a quarterback. It does, however, give the Raiders optionality because they don't feel the pressure to take a quarterback. Back to what you said about Shedeur. If he doesn't go 2 and doesn't go 3, this is, and I'm not making predictions, this new Windows doesn't have the date on the thing. I always look down for the date. What are we, April 3rd? It is
the 4th of April. April 4th.
Something like that, April 4th. Man, that's a bad update right there. April 4th, okay? I'm not making predictions about it right now, but you start to wonder, is this going to be one of those classic, he's not going to be in the green room, he's not going to the draft, but could this be one of those slides that we talk about in past years?
How about 9 and the Saints?
The other threats. So if we go down the list of the other threats to take one in round 1, you have the Raiders at 6, you have the Saints at 9, you have the Steelers at 21, and you have the Rams at 26. Those are really the only teams that I would foresee taking one in the first round. Like, those would include even the potential surprises. The Atlanta would have been in that category last year, even though it was shocking that they did it after signing Kirk. It was still within the realm of possibility. There's really only 6 or 7 teams. So if you don't go 1, 2, or 3, especially knowing the Browns and the Giants have a quarterback need, it really raises questions about exactly where is Shedeur going to go. I know that there are still our Bucky Brooks still has him as the number 1 quarterback above Cam Ward. I would say Bucky is squarely in the minority on that. There are people who like Shedeur Sanders as a player, but it's not an elite arm. It's not elite athletic ability. There are other questions just about how it's going to fit in a program. He's an accurate passer. He certainly has some traits that are give him the opportunity to be a really good NFL quarterback. But is he going to be an elite NFL quarterback? And that's part of what people are kind of grappling with over these final 20 days up until the NFL draft. When I said off the top, there's a better debate about who should be the number 2 quarterback versus number 1. I mean, there's a handful of quarterbacks who would go in the first, Andrew. Beyond Cam Ward, I don't think that there's a lock to go in the first. Shedeur, I would lean, goes in the first. But where does Jalen Milroe go? Where does Tyler Shuck end up going in this draft? Jackson Dart, who's with the Steelers today, is another one in that category. There's other quarterbacks like Quinn Ewers who have won a ton in their college careers. Where is the right place for him to go in this draft? I mean, these are all, I think valid questions. And there's going to be some, beauty in the eye of the beholder here. I don't believe that beyond Cam Ward being 1 on most, if not all, boards, I don't know that you're going to have a consensus 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of all these quarterbacks. And so there could be a ton of variability. I mean, I can't sit here and say right now Shedeur is even going to be the second quarterback off the board just because he's a completely different player than a Jalen Milroe, who does have the athletic traits but doesn't have the consistent accuracy in the things as a passer here. Tyler Shuck, you've really got one healthy year of tape. He's like 25 years old, and he's got 4 different degrees. He played 7 years of college football, but he played pretty well last year. People have liked him through the process. And then obviously Jackson Dart in that category too. This is going to be really interesting to see how it all plays out. I think I talked to somebody I really respect in the league last week who said they don't think any of those guys I just mentioned of those 5 is going to go later than the top 2. So you could have some real maneuvering as we get later into the first round. But the pivot point for Shedeur Sanders is if he doesn't go 2 and doesn't go 3, then all bets are off of exactly, where that's going to end.
We got like a minute and a half remaining here. You mentioned the Steelers, and I think this is fascinating with Shedeur, with Jackson Dart, with Milroe, with the Browns, and the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers. Let's tie it all together here, because considering what you said about 6 and 9, and the Steelers are sitting there at 21, if Rodgers says yes, then you'd have to think they're likely out of the quarterback conversation at 21. But if Rodgers is still sitting in Malibu waiting for a FaceTime audio call from somebody other than the Steelers or hasn't made up his mind, Then, with the Browns sitting there at 33 and the Steelers quarterback plans unknown, to me, Tom, it's fascinating. Do you have to, let's say, if you're the Browns, get ahead of the Steelers? Who do the Steelers want? Is it what you want? Rodgers going there, I think, takes a little bit of suspense out of the quarterback game in the bottom half of the first round. But if he still hasn't said yes, or better yet, if he has said no to the Steelers, then that last hour of the draft to me is as interesting as the first.
Well, think about this too, Andrew, because you're right. All these things are tied together. I wouldn't say it's a total disqualifier if Rodgers goes to Pittsburgh. They can't take a quarterback in the first round, but it certainly would lower the likelihood. I would also say from a strategic standpoint, and you heard Art Rooney mention this the other day when he was asked, has it taken longer than you thought? And he said, yes. He said that everything seems positive right now, which matches what I've heard, which is all signs point toward Aaron eventually being a Steeler. But there is going to become a point at which patience might run out, and it might be draft week of, hey, if we don't know you're coming, we might take one in the first round. I believe, and again, the Steelers have put no deadlines on this, and Mike Tomlin has always shown that he is willing to be patient in these matters. I would certainly think it would be the strong preference of the Steelers to have an answer already, to have it ASAP, but certainly before the draft begins, because that is going to influence the strategy you have as you go into round one. Again, everybody is very sensitive around all matters involving Aaron Rodgers. Nobody wants to spook him. Nobody wants to say the wrong thing. But if you read between the lines of what Art Rooney said, it's very obvious that, hey, they're showing patience. They want him. They think it all is trending toward him coming to Pittsburgh, but they don't have an answer. And at some point here, you are going to have to make other decisions that impact your football team for years to come that are hinging on one 41-year-old making up his mind and just saying, yes, done, I'm coming. The contract parameters have been in place for weeks. It's going to be a one-year deal when it gets done. But they don't have the final, I'm in. And you've heard a little bit of that frustration out of the locker room, too, in terms of, I know Cam Hayward tried to walk it back a couple of times, but hey, you want to be a Steeler or you don't. That's right. That's from what I've been told. That's kind of the sentiment among the veteran players. Like, dude, are you in or out? Because we're good either way. But like, this is the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is not, I'm not even going to say another team, but this is not some franchise that hasn't been around that long. It doesn't have history. It's the Steelers. No, I gotcha. It's one of the iconic teams in all of football. Tell us what you want. What are you going to do? And we'll react from there. From an organizational standpoint, a roster management standpoint, in my mind, speaking solely for myself, in my mind, that pivot point comes the week of the draft.
You're either in or you're out. And I would argue Renegade's overrated, but that is just me.
Wow, hot take.
Tom Pelissero is
you're really a Cleveland Brown now, Andrew. You got that one in there.
I'll tell the story on the other side. But Tom is in here at this desk starting next Wednesday. And hopefully you get Marriott points out of that to make up for your vacation, which you took time away from.
Burning through them here.
You took time away from that vacation to do this. We thank you kindly. Go back to the beach.
It's pouring again.
Okay, of course it is because it's Florida.
It's pouring again.
Thank you, Tom. Tell Sarah and the family we said hi.
See you,
good
Tommy.
Night,
be good,
Tom
man.
Pelissero.
Stay dry.
Here's the thing about Florida.
I sent you a text, Tom.
They have no state taxes, but it's still in Florida.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.